Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Happy St. Patty's Day. And we couldn't celebrate St. Patty's Day without begging and pleading. And no, she didn't. I didn't even take that much. I just had to ask her. I didn't wait a little bit till the last minute to ask her. But Catherine Schneider, Fitchburg Historical Society, everything St. Patrick's, Irish, she's got it all. And happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And thank you so much for joining me today here on Talking Fitchburg.
It's always a pleasure, Jeremy. And so happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. It's always a special day for me because my family name is O'Brien with deep roots in Fitchburg. And so it's just a pleasure to look over some of the influence of the Irish in Fitchburg through the years. I thought I'd like to start with just a opening paragraph from the book by Tom Kenny, which is Irish Settlers in Fitchburg, early Irish settlers in Fitchburg. And it opens up this way. On a crisp November day in 1842, two Irish immigrant brothers in their 20s drove a horse and buggy through Oak Woods along an Indian trail that ran from Janesville to Madison. As they entered the township that was to become known as Fitchburg, the young men pulled up their buggy at a small log hotel on the banks of a pond where it is said that the skies overhead would blacken from time to time with immense flocks of migratory birds. So this is actually where Oak Hall was, at the corner of Fish Hatchery and M that they're referring to here.
Wow.
A man named Harvey Bush, who had recently established one of the first farms in the township, offered to guide them to prime, unclaimed land 2 miles to the east. They rode out to view the property, which turned out to be gently rolling prairie land interspersed with oak groves. After canvassing the promising territory, Harvey Bush turned to the brothers and uttered his now legendary line, "It's fine land, but it's such an out-of-the-way place." So these
That's
brothers
awesome.
were George and Dr. William Fox, and they found that land was exactly what they were looking for. So they went to the land office in Milwaukee, purchased the tract of land there, and then they came to live in Fitchburg as the first Irish settlers in June of 1843. And this area became known as the Fox Settlement in Fitchburg. And it was the beginning of the development of the Irish agricultural settlement of Fitchburg. So this would have been, the Fox property would have been very near Oregon, Wisconsin, and just on the edge where Oak Hill Correctional Facility is now. So that's where they located that first farm. So there were actually 3 Irish settlements, agricultural settlements in Fitchburg in those early days from about the 1840s through the 1860s. That first one was the Fox settlement with those 2 brothers, George and Dr. William Fox. And actually, Dr. William Fox was one of the first doctors in the region. So they came from a pretty educated, well-to-do family, actually. So their time coming there was June of 1843. Then the next settlement would have been on Irish Lane, well named.
Appropriately named there, right?
Yeah, very appropriately named, right off of Fish Hatchery Road. And that settlement came to be in 1844, so a couple of years after the Fox settlement, but pretty early on, even pre the potato famine in Ireland, which happened from about 1848 into the early 1850s. So this preceded it with early Irish settlement. The early settlers there were the Kinney family, Andrew and his brother Michael. The Kinneys are still there on the homestead. And then a settlement grew around them. And then the third settlement, the latest of these Irish settlements, was after 1850, right around that time, and that was Stoner Prairie, where Stoner Prairie School is now, and that along Seminole Highway. And by that time, most of those folks would be, those Irish would be immigrants who would be escaping the potato famine, which was really devastating their homeland of Ireland. So it became, those three settlements, really a heart of one of Dane County's largest rural Irish communities. And just to give you an idea, the 1860 census in Fitchburg, there were 213 households. Can you imagine that total
Can't
number in
can't
Fitchburg?
even.
And 76 of those were Irish families. So about 30% of Fitchburg were Irish. The head of the households were Irish born in 1860. So just to give you an idea of some of the names, since it's St. Patrick's Day, here we go. Barrys, Burns, Grady's, Lacey's, McQuillans, Sweeney's, Wayland's. And then in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, O'Brien's and Dunn's, which are actually my relatives, families purchased farms along Seminole Highway too, and those families are still present in that area. As are so many of the other families are still there, sense of those early families. So influence remains in Fitchburg. Those farms they created were passed on from generation to generation. Strong sense of family and creating, the idea of growing crops and selling them and being productive members of the community. Very strong ethic there, work ethic. And then I just wanted to say, even up to the present time, I'm saying the influence is there of the Irish. So we can see that if you drive through Fitchburg, you or walk or bike or however you're getting through Fitchburg, a means of transportation, we have the names of the roads. So you can name some of them, Jeremy, I know.
You already said Irish, and it. I'm just thinking of everything rural Fitchburg, which I think it's still interesting if you really think about it too, that most of the rural area is it represents it is Fitchburg, but it's still rural, it's still undeveloped, it's still like it was, like it's almost like it's been, we have built on it, and there's certainly things have changed over the years, but I always find that fascinating that, when we're talking about the history of Fitchburg, it really is the other direction. It's not where when we're close to the Madison, where a lot of our homes are. We still got this cool rural area, and it really is the true, the Fitchburg. Not that any place isn't anywhere else. It's just when you think about, and I think about, and only because I've gotten to hear some of the stories from you, but when I think of Seminole and the railroad and those sort of things that are still somewhat out there, the bike path representing, that same path and going down Went Road, and yeah, it's awesome. But tell us some of those road names, because there's a bunch of them.
There are. So if you think of the roads going east and west through Fitchburg, main thoroughfares, McKee, Lacey, Wayland. And then there are maybe not quite as prominent roads, but well-known still, Purcell, Byrne, Lawler, McCoy. So I'm sure folks recognize those names. And then there are also parks, of course, that we have those Irish names maintained. So there's the Gorman Wayside, which is at the top of the hill on Fish Hatchery Road, where the City Hall used to be located many years ago. There's McGaw Park on Lacey Road, East Lacey. McKee Farm Parks, again on East McKee Road near Fish Hatchery. And there's Burnwood Park, which is also on Fish Hatchery Road. So, those parks somewhat parallel some of the settlements also. So I think today to particularly appreciate the influence of the Irish and their contributions to Fitchburg through 180 years. That passage I read at the beginning here, as the Fox brothers were surveying the land, was in 1842. That's almost 180 years ago. So that's a strong strong influence of the Irish through the years, consistent influence. So I'm just happy to acknowledge that, and a certain sense of pride of being coming from some of those, descending from some of those families.
I think you appreciate it more knowing, that you're still hearing those names there, that there are still some of the families still at these farms and or been memorialized or are being remembered because of all of the different names, the parks. So it's quite an honor, and it's been an honor to have you, Catherine. Thank you so much for pulling this together for us. And I love the I can't wear green. I first off, I thought the Badgers played today, so I blew that one. But I can't wear green because I'm on a green background. So I love the green, and I love the earrings there too. So thank you so very much. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you for our history and all your help. We appreciate that so much, Catherine.
Oh, you're so welcome. My pleasure, Jeremy.